Power Rangers podcast now.
Woo!
So, there's two reasons for this. We've been going through and watching all of Dino Fury together, and we didn't want to when we eventually cover that when the second part drops. We didn't want to double back onto what was going on in that and like talk about our past and everything with it. The second one is, well, you notice we're missing one gentleman of color. I If you paid attention to the short I put up yesterday, I moved out of the apartment that Thurman and I were sharing, and life's been a little crazy. So I don't think it's going to be as simple to get him into recordings as it was, where I could just drag him into the other room. So that's unfortunate, but we got the boys here that we've been mentioning this with, and we're going to talk about our past, our future, what we want from this franchise, our favorite seasons, favorite moments, that kind of thing. What reinvigorated our love for Power Rangers, and then next, in like 2 weeks, we'll talk about Dino Fury as a whole. So, Luke, it's your video idea, so you take the floor.
Yeah, so my introduction to Power Rangers is pretty straightforward. Remember watching it as a kid. My first introduction to it was Power Rangers Time Force. I mean, I knew mostly about it from like the Mighty Morphin era, but Time Force was really the series where I was like, okay, paying attention to it. And then Wild Force came out because that was the season that was being aired when I was like really watching it on a old television like batch, similar to like how you had the Toonami block in America. Over here, it was similar to that, called Up on the Roof, which was ironically the same introduction I got to Yu-Gi-Oh as well. And it's crazy because the guy who used to present that, who's no longer doing presenting anymore, I actually sent him a message on Facebook and he got back to me on it saying like, "Oh, thank you for that. Glad you enjoyed watching me on TV." So that was kind of a surreal moment when that happened. But yeah, so Time Force and Wild Force were really my first introductions to it, and it's kind of a bit like um, awkward to say that Wild Force was my introduction to Power Rangers now, considering what happened with the actor who played the Red Ranger in Wild Force.
Yeah, I mean, just a spot of sword murder, that's all.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that was really my introduction to it, and I did like because it was like one of the big action series that I used to go wild with my imagination. Obviously, being autistic, I went wild with my imagination, making up my own Power Rangers, which I kind of still do to this day, just randomly making up my own Power Rangers. Particularly when Jungle Fury came out, I was like, I want to be the Fox Ranger, be the first Orange Power Ranger. Oh, uh, but also as well with Wild Force, it was more like I want to do my own version of Merrick and have it be a golf aspect and be the Crocodile Ranger. Oh, it was so stupid, but I loved it. Yeah, and it's kind of funny as well because in that segment when they were advertising Ninja Storm, the guy who presented it did the Kiwi Ranger, and ironically later on we got a Ranger that had a Kiwi on his skateboard.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was my introduction, and like I said, it was first like major franchise that live action franchise that I really got into, and it just sort of impacted me because it was just something that I could always go back to, always relive my kind of have like that childhood nostalgia to it without being like, oh, the original was the best, rabble, 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 rabble. And all of that, and then once I started to learn more about the Super Sentai and getting interested in that, it was like the rest is history, as they'll say.
Oh yeah. So I grew up child of the '90s, obviously. So I started watching Mighty Morphin back when it first aired. Didn't really understand it, a whole lot until I was a little bit older, and then it was just going through that first batch of reruns. And I'm like, I fell in love with it, but here in America, they also did like mall tours and shit when it got really, really popular. And I, I always wanted to do stupid karate shit. That's kind of what led me into like MMA for a bit when I was an adult. Seeing it live as a kid kind of influenced that. Just them doing all sorts of wacky jumps into like foam blocks. It was objectively stupid looking back on it now what they were doing, but so is the entire franchise. Like, it is just wacky, over the top, like humor and stunts and 5,000 tons of tannerite being used every time they do a fucking explosion. But at the same time, like seeing that in person kind of influenced, what I would go on to do as a kid and everything. So, like Luke, I kind of did my own little thing. I would, with my friends at the time, I would do, like little Power Ranger stunts and shit, and try and jump and karate kick and wall run off of trees and dumb shit like that. Always ending up getting hurt because back then, growing up in a small town, you made your own fun. So I really loved doing that. So that was my introduction, and I kind of fell off during like Lost Galaxy originally, and then I came back to it during Wild Force and Ninja Storm, and I fell off of it again, and then I came back to it during arguably one of the worst seasons, and we'll get to that eventually.
Oh,
And then I kind of fell out of love with it because I was seeing how cringe it had become, and then now coming back to it, having watched a bit of Beast Morphers, and then all of Dino Fury that's out so far with you guys, I came back into like the show that way. But to me, my massive reintroduction and re-falling in love with it was the Boom comics. I've talked about
oh
that.
yeah,
I talked about that a bit in the past, but like seeing a dark alternate universe where Tommy went fully rogue and started hunting down the Rangers and killing off entire teams to try and become one with the grid, stuff like that really fascinated me because it's something you really couldn't tell in a Saturday morning cartoon style show.
yeah,
Because
and
the demographic for that is, arguably our age versus 10-year-olds, which is what the toys and the merchandise and all that is aimed towards. So that was really what got me into that, and that's why I started doing that with Thurman. Started doing the Massiverse videos here because they're written by the same people that kind of made me fall back in love with it, Kyle Higgins and Ryan Parrott. But what I will say on that is now I would love to see that, and we'll talk about it a bit more when we get to what we want to see from that. But I want to see something a bit more akin to that from this new generation of Power Rangers moving forward because now they're not beholden to that time slot of like aimed directly at kids now that it's on Netflix. So that they can do a bit more, I think.
yeah, definitely. And I just wish that they would put the entire franchise back on Netflix.
Oh yeah, very much so. But at the same time, they're all slowly getting uploaded to YouTube. So I think they're about 3/4 of the way done with SPD right now. So we have that outlet for it. Zangetsu?
Yeah, I mean, um, kind of started the series like around, I guess, around Zeo era, but wasn't really watching it. Zeo. I was kind of like watching like reruns of like Mighty Morphin, the original one. It you know Star there, and really gave me like this like real like interest in like similar like stuff. I would constantly try to find stuff that was similar, and it got me drawn into like Godzilla, whatnot. And eventually, when I got older, and of course, that access to the internet, you could pretty much watch whatever you want. So I decided to look for even more like stuff related to it, and I found uh, Super Sentai and other like tokusatsu. And it just grew from there. Like I really enjoyed the genre. Like sure, it's like super cheesy that like guys in costumes beat up like other guys in like rubber suits, but each genre got like their good points and their weak points.
Oh yeah, I mean, and
Yeah,
what else can you have a boxing nun? You know?
Yes, we need more boxing, none.
saw that GIF, I thought that was fake, and then I realized this is Sentai. There is no shortage of ridiculous things in this genre.
Like we've been saying, this franchise can have a ninja themed series and have a samurai ranger that wields an ancient ninja electric guitar.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, I think Zangetsu, you and I are the only ones that kind of branched out fully from like Sentai into like the other tokusatsu genres. Aside from Andrew, who he and I did the entire like Godzilla tier list podcast, but you and I are the only ones that like dove really into like Kamen Rider and Ultraman and all that stuff out here. And I for Kamen Rider in particular, like there was a block here in America on Fox back in the day that had Dragon Knight, I believe was the Kamen Rider. That was my first introduction to that, and then that's become like lost media here, and it's so much so that the actor that played the MC in it is like go out and pirate it. That's the only way you can really experience it, and
That's legitly the only way you're gonna see it.
it's so bold to think about, you know, in the modern age that we have such few access to some of these series outside of stuff like Shout Factory releases and piracy. And now with Power Rangers being off of Netflix, the only way you can technically access it is either the uploads on YouTube. The few that are like, I believe Power Ranger, Mighty Morphin, Ninja Steel, Beast Morphers, and Dino Fury are the only ones that are currently on Netflix.
Yeah.
And then you can buy them digitally on Amazon Prime. Because before I found out that they were uploading them onto YouTube, that's what I did to finish Lost Galaxy. Because when we first had this idea of doing something Power Rangers related, I wanted to sit down and watch every series, which is a massive undertaking for a 25, almost 30-year-old franchise at this point. And I still am in the process of doing that because life has been so hectic. But we really are strangely finding more and more sort of lost media in this genre, and it's very depressing to think about. So I'm glad that the actors are out there like, you know what, if the company that produced this doesn't want to make this readily available for you, the fan, fucking pirate it. I know his kind of hypocritical after me flaming people like Packer Girl on Twitter and yada yada yada, but I've never once hid the fact that I use piracy sites when I can't access the media legally.
Yeah, and you're not. The reason why it's not as bad as you with Pacquiao is because you're not there saying like, I want to be sponsored.
You know what? If Hasbro wants to sponsor me, I will stop pirating this. But until then, make your ship available. You know, like that's the only thing that I'm in this mind of right now. And I think what we can do now for moving forward with this franchise and kind of moving this talking point along just a little bit. Now that we're on Netflix, we're not beholden to that age group of like max 10, you know, and that's a really real relief for older fans to be able to have like a long continuous plot, because in Dino Fury, for example, it's the first one that's really like super continuing into Cosmic Fury for a very very long time actually.
Yeah,
They're showing that like the target audience for this is broader than that key age group that they want to shill merchandise towards, which I'm very very happy with. What I'm not a fan of is the rumor that they're going to drop all 40 episodes at once.
I am in two minds about it. On one hand, I'm glad that we're getting them all at once, so that we're not having to be like what you said yesterday when we finished like the batch of Dino Fury. It's like now, we want to find out what happens next. Consider it. I don't know if you watched them yet, so I'll get to the last two episodes, but what happens in episode 11 is like, oh my word, what is gonna happen next?
And see, like, that's the thing with binge culture, and binge culture is a blessing and a curse because you can get 11 episodes of something right off the bat. I'll use Cyberpunk Edge Runners for example. I sat down in like the span of 2 days and binged that entire anime. And it's arguably my anime of the year. You know, this is traditionally like more of an anime channel, so I don't feel bad using that as an example. But it's arguably in running for anime of the year for me because it dared to go where so few anime, like mainstream anime, go. Like it's Studio Trigger, and if you've watched anything Studio Trigger, it's fucking insane. Like they don't hold back on what they do animation wise, but I did not expect it to be basically an X-rated anime, and it was.
Wow.
It really was. Like they animated like a full-fledged hentai scene in a quote unquote mainstream anime. And that's just the culture in that universe. It's very sex positive. It's very or like in the game itself, like in Cyberpunk 2077, you have like full on like sex shops. Some of the characters are basically like sex workers. It's very interesting that universe, but I never expected it from an anime that's made by like not a hentai studio. I don't expect Power Rangers to go that direction, obviously, but I do. I do picture them going darker, and over the years, you've progressively got darker and darker plots. Like Wild Force, SPD, RPM, they all have their own dark subplots, but they never went fully dark. And
I would say RPM is the closest.
The RPM is the closest. It's got fucking genocide. Like there's no getting around that. But I think it being out of like Nickelodeon jail or Disney jail, it will be able to do a lot more with that dark subplot, or even make a fully dark series. Maybe one being geared more towards the adult fans, and one being geared towards like the kids.
Yeah.
And that darker one, I would love to see them adapt the comics or something similar to that, because in that universe you have the Death Ranger, you have stuff like a full-on wars on a galactic scale, tearing the Morphin grid apart, and we've seen little bits and pieces of that in like Beast Morphers, and we've seen little bits and pieces of like what happens if you lose your link to the grid a bit, and even early like Mighty Morphin, like when Tommy wasn't able to morph anymore when his power ran out. So that's always been lore, but you've never seen like full teams lose their connection to the grid, for an extended period of time, like the Coinless and the Shattered Grid storyline, and they still have like sort of the strength of a ranger, but they're having to resort to like more guerrilla tactics, fighting with guns and blaster rifles, and trying to defend their universe that way instead of being a ranger in a traditional sense. It's a nice little spin on like once a ranger, always a ranger. They're still there on the front lines defending their universe, even without their link to the grid. That's something I found really fascinating with it, and that's a dark storyline they could tell for the adults. Whereas for the kids, they could have those little undertones and be like, here's this little, homicidal villain, but here's a fart joke 2 minutes later.
But yeah, one of the things to go off on that is that and these are just my ideas that I have potential theories in mind for what they could potentially do with Cosmic Fury, because as we know, that's going to be the 30th anniversary, so we're expecting Rangers to return. Like that's a given for any anniversary. But the one thing I don't want it to be is that I don't want it to be like one of the more recognizable Rangers. So I don't want it to be like Jason or Tommy for the 50 billionth time.
Well, it's not going to be Tommy. He's retired.
Oh, that is great. That is great. Yeah, because as Linkara said in his Ninja Steel review, when they got to the 25th anniversary one, where it was like just a Tommy worship show, it was like, yeah, this needs to stop.
Well, I am of two minds about that as well. Like, I understand the aspect of the impact of the first Sixth Ranger. I understand, like, he is your biggest merchandise seller because everybody of my generation anyway, you know, the pretty white boy always wanted to be the Green Ranger, the White Ranger. Everybody, worshipped that aspect of it. Arguably, he's one of the worst written Rangers on the planet.
I know, and it's funny because somebody was actually reacting to Linkara's History of Power Rangers, like the first one, the Mighty Morphin one, and they were like going like, "Oh, I remember this, and I dropped off this because it changed too much," and I was like, "Yeah, it changed for the better." But no, But no, I was saying that more as like, well, I was saying that in tongue in cheek because arguably, if you really look back at Mighty Morphin, it's not until the third season where it's like it actually starts to feel like a well-written show.
I think it was more like back in the Saban era, they really didn't want to push things too much because they didn't know if it would have any staying power. And you see that when they brought like Metalman and the sense of like VR Troopers and Beetleborgs here, and the fucking there was another one that was like Heroes of something where they were all like medieval warriors. They tried so many different like Sentai spin-offs to try and recapture what they had with the Power Rangers effect, but nothing has had the same power of Power Rangers. We got one season of fucking Kamen Rider here. It was horribly written, and that was like 10 years after all the other shit. But with Power Rangers, they wanted to make the most money while putting the least amount of effort into it at first, and then they saw like, wait, this is actually popular. Let's actually put effort into the writing, and then you got stuff like the death of Zordon and shit like that, to kind of give that nice push back into popularity. Like, what's going to happen next? And then, like, everything after that really was like its own thing.
Yeah, but also again, gotta say, going back to what you just said about the death of Zordon, all you My Hero fanboys out there who think like My Hero is the greatest written thing ever, you do not know crap until you have witnessed the death of the mentor figure who was pretty much the keystone for the franchise. It was basically like if All Might had a major big role for 5 years and it ended with his death.
I mean, technically, he is the Zordon of that series, but he's just like not in the plot,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he was, if
Yeah,
All
but
Might
he
was more in the plot.
yeah, if he was more active, like that's why I don't understand. Then, just to kind of derail this for a second, I saw fucking Chibi's tweet this morning, and I'm like, how far into the video are we? Oh, we're 30 minutes on it, basically. Okay, I just quote retweeted, seeing My Hero fans. Let me actually read it verbatim here. Let me read it verbatim here.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me seeing My Hero shit the bed consistently has been my cocaine for the last 4 years. Because I guess in the leaks, Mirio twerked.
Yeah, he well, no, he showed his butt to Shigaraki.
It fits the character. Even if somebody has read as little of fucking My Hero as I have, that fits the character.
Yeah, but no, so going back to what I was saying, like, so yeah, you get all the. It's not just My Hero; it's like other franchises who are just like, "Oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever because this character did this character did that," and they just look at something like Power Rangers and think like, "Oh, that's so cheesy and that's so cheesy and cliche." Yeah, Ann Arbor. I am calling Ann Arbor out now, and I do not care what
the devil's going to be in the comments like, how dare you call me out?
Look, say, I am gonna say like Ann Arbor. You tell me with a straight face that any series that has a character who is kidnapped by the government to create programs to the point that they were the whole life to the point that they couldn't even remember their fucking name, They were lied to, and the only way they could get out was to create a virus that pretty much ended the world and killed off 80% of the race. Did an Eren Yeager? You tell me, you look at me with all seriousness and say that is cheesy, cliche, and stupid. Mic drop.
Yeah. Well, see, the issue for me with Ann Arbor is he's reading the fucking Elden Ring manga, which is literally like a comedy manga. Like the first chapter, you have somebody basically showing like where the butt arrows would be from where they got respawned to fucking Milena. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You think Power Rangers is cheesy? That's cheesy.
Yeah, and Power Rangers is cheesy. I'm not saying it's not cheesy, but the fact that it is cheesy only helps to impact the more like the cheesiest. It never comes in the set. It's never shown when there's a serious moment. It has its cheesy moments, but when it's serious, it is serious. Like the death of Sordon, Dr. K's flashback, and like even the whole thing with recently in Dino Fury with Sato and Ion and their like survivor's guilt and the fact that they pretty much caused Sato pretty much caused the genocide of his own people.
Yeah, it's insane to think about. Like, there's for every like cheesy band moment we've had in because that's been the big one for the Black Ranger. Uh, we've had like multiple like cheesy interactions with like him going through an instrument, playing it, and then like recently like Zato over here passing instrument after instrument to one up the asshole that stole his song.
Yeah, and it's impactful that moment because it's all the instruments that he had been practicing with.
Exactly, like that cheese can have impact in it, and even all the way back to like Mighty Morphin, you can have it. Zeo, for example, like the Zeo quest, you had all of the Rangers basically turned into children before they could get their crystal shard and get.
Oh my god. Yeah, and I remember this. Like the reason why they couldn't get to the command center is because the console was unplugged at the time, so they could use a vacuum cleaner.
It's so cheesy, but it's good in its own right. You know, it's very much it feeds off of that. It feeds off of that cheesy comedy.
Yeah, and just to go off on now that you've brought up Seal, like Bulk and Skull, who are like the most cheesiest of cheesiest people ever, have like one of the more emotional moments in Seal, where Skull it's like revealed like, oh, he's a good piano player, and then Bulk is like, oh, I'm sorry for saying what I said.
That and they have like one of the best redemption stories in media. Like they were just these two assholes who would just constantly bully everybody at the school, except for the principal.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that the other teachers will be fair game if the rating was, for this show was higher. But
oh yeah,
but like they would bully everybody, and because of the influence of like the Rangers, like they like the Ranger crew, like out of suit, they hated them. They hated their guts. They were like, look at these perfect goody two shoe like characters. But when the mask came on, when the Ranger helmet came on, they adored the Rangers so much, and that inspired them to be actually like good people, actually try harder to attempt things, or even sometimes when they failed, they would still go for it, and they would actually like legitly try to help people. They even saved the Rangers at one point because of this.
yeah, like at the end of
And this was before like their great speech.
Yes, yeah, I know. You were about to say that, Fex.
yeah, like in space, they were willing to die for the Rangers. Basically, like it's insane to think of like they went from the absolute cunts of the school to willing to lay down their lives to protect the Rangers. It's like I wish I could get away with playing that clip right now.
I'll just do a reenactment. Come on, let's get in there. Who's with me?
Everyone here's the Ranger. It's insane. Like, and then I know it's arguably not canon, but canon. Like in the Hyperforce tabletop season, like they finally got to be Rangers.
Well, Bulk did.
Yeah, like, and then in the comics they were in one of the gags. They were like the purple and orange Ranger, and then you had them like be also like Sentinels and the Shattergrid stuff. But yeah, it's like that. That's so weird to think about, like where this massive universe can lead you, because each one of these are technically self-contained stories. Like after in space, they're all like more self-contained stories, but it's all in its own right affecting the same universe, which is bizarre to think about. But getting into multiverse theory and yada yada yada, it leads an interesting premise for Cosmic Fury.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we've had multiple planets mentioned inside of Dino Fury, and you kept bringing that up while we were going through. Like, we've had Eltar mentioned, obviously, like Rathcon. We've had, like, the Lion's Head Nebula mentioned. But there's a lot of places we could go. And the only time we've really seen Eltar, to an extent, outside of the comics, has been that 2017 movie. We got the little, like, Zordon's final moments before he became, like, Bryan Cranston in a tube. I'll never forget, he went from Walter fucking White to being Zordon.
that is insane.
That's the ultimate Breaking Bad meme. I want somebody to make like some sort of a link me a meme on your Twitter for that in the comments of this video, please. I know they have to exist.
But yeah, going back to what you were saying, that's one of the things that I want from Cosmic Fury. Well, I had plot points that I wanted to explore. Like one of the big ones is like finding out who the Phantom Ranger really is, because that was something that, because we got this in Beast Morpher, like they're willing to go back and look at older ideas and think like, oh yeah, this was a plot point that was dropped.
There's technically a comic that explains it. So,
but I want to.
I don't know if they're considering that the canon of it, or if they're going to explore it in some degree here. But there is a comic that explains his origins.
Fair enough, but I'd like it in the actual show itself to give like an explanation. But it's like I said, like going back to older storylines that were abandoned, like the whole thing with the cliffhanger with RPM and that being explored in Beast Morphers. So they're not afraid now to go back and do that with the franchise. And obviously, like I said, visiting Altar, that's what I would want. Going to Aquitar, and like if there was one, like I said to you yesterday, Fex, if there was one Ranger that I want back more than any others, it's Billy.
Yeah, see, with Billy, there's like three interesting places they could go. There's always been like these like headcanon for the fans that he was technically the Phantom Ranger. There's also like he could have taken over somebody from Aquitar's role, and then they could also have him be the mentor for this group, like being abroad, you know? And with it being the anniversary season, like he is technically one of the most popular Rangers that isn't overly busy. Because you have Johnny Young Bosch being the voice of fucking every third anime character.
Including Ichigo.
Yeah, including Ichigo, and probably by now working on either the game or the new season of Code Geass. Because they were doing a new gacha game, so he's probably working on that on the side, or the new season, dubbing it.
Yeah. And he's also one of the more popular ones that haven't really been explored since the CO era, and this is something like this is why I don't have a slight spoiler for people who haven't seen Dino Fury, but this is why I have no problem with like them bring it back Lord Zed in Dino Fury, because that was impactful because of the fact that it had been over 20 years since we had seen Lord Zed, and he's like one of the big villains of Power Rangers.
Oh yeah.
So to see him come back, and not from what I can tell, he's gonna in the next batch he's gonna play a pretty pivotal role. So it's not just a one-off appearance from him. He's actually gonna be like an integral part. And if it doesn't happen, if they don't destroy him in Dino Fury, then it's very, very likely he will be the main villain of Cosmic Fury.
Oh yeah, it's very possible that we could see him be the main villain again, or one of the main villains with the Void Queen, depending on what happens at the end of Dino Fury. But we have some interesting potential for this, and that's what's really driving me so much into like theory crafting here and trying to figure out where the fuck we can even go, because we technically have the entire galaxy at our fingertips with this potential.
Yeah.
And it's baffling with a universe that's so massive, because if you've read the comics, there's like whole other worlds with whole other Power Rangers that kind of exist but don't even know what the hell a Power Ranger is, without spoiling like the Beyond the Grid storyline, because it's a more recent one. It's like a year and a half old. Like,
Okay.
There's like Rangers that don't understand their own powers. They just utilize them to either heist and survive, or try and just really survive, to not dive too deep into that story. And then you have like the Omega Rangers, which have been heavily publicized, that are like what happened after the peace conference, really, kind of, which was one of the dumber lines to get out of union contract negotiations.
Yeah, and that's again, that's another thing. I'd like to see at least Sack, because obviously we can't have Trainee back for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Tui Chang. But yeah, Sack would be a pretty good one to bring back and find out exactly what because I don't think Jason never really in Zeo when he came back never really talked about the peace conference.
No, I don't really think he did overly much, and that's interesting to come back to. Like with that whole like storyline, because when Walter was at our local con, like there were multiple people that brought that up. Like, would you be interested in coming back? And he's always been on board. They've just never contacted him, from what he was mentioning. And
Okay.
he kind of doesn't like that, because it's a big part of his background. But at the same time, he's like at peace with it, because he's been reading the comics, and he's seemed to enjoy where they're taking it. He's like, I'd love to be able to do something like this.
That is pretty awesome. Like that's another thing that I respect about Power Rangers, is when the actors themselves can actually get into the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I say that knowing that there are some actors who are like just fed up of it. Like from what I remember seeing, the Yellow Ranger from Dino Fury, Kira, her actor doesn't like the fact that people bring up her wanting to talk about Power Rangers. But that's the thing that I don't get. It's like, this is the thing that started your career. It's the thing you're always going to be remembered for. You might as well just embrace it. It'll be like if after One Piece ended, Oda just didn't want to talk about One Piece.
Well, I
think that's a little like how would you say? I want to say whatever word I'm thinking of, but I'm sure I'm gonna misspeak rather. I don't know her circumstances. Like, it could have been like something with like the staff, or like a certain fan or whatever. I don't know. So
It could be.
I I remember there's been multiple actors and actresses that have been like overly harassed and overly, you know,
Oh yeah, if they're being overly harassed, I can understand. I can understand it.
there's
It's
been like multiple staff members that have been really like verbally and overly abusive towards the actors, and that's why like people like Billy originally left, and that might be the same circumstances with her. I have heard that she's not doesn't have fond memories of being on set with it, and
okay.
wants to kind of move past Power Rangers and embrace her other acting roles and have people remember her for more than being just a Power Ranger. But I do agree. Like this is what broke you out into the entertainment industry. But it'd be like saying to like Jeanette McCurdy, like, "Well, you were famous for this one thing, and Dan Schneider having a foot fetish."
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But like, it's very very it's sad because that was one of the better Rangers from that season, and we we have so many cases of these people unfortunately like wanting to sort of like distance themselves from it because that's all they're kind of remembered for. I remember the um, the actress that played the main character in iZombie was also a ranger, and everybody at a convention would bring up Power Rangers merch instead of like iZombie merch while she was on like press tours for it, and it got so annoying to her staff. uh,
Well, okay, that I can understand because if you're like doing a press tour for something else,
and
then
you're just
yeah,
like over here like, hey, can you sign my Ranger figurine? I remember you from when I was.
yeah, I can understand. I can understand that. I'm just talking more about like the
But I'm just trying to show like different sides of this entire argument there.
yeah.
We can't put ourselves in her shoes and know why, obviously.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely. But yeah, wanted to circle back to one of the other plot points that I went, and this is actually in reference to the comics because one storyline that I did read from the comics that actually really fascinated me was the trial of Astronomer.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and to go off on that, I'd like them in Cosmic Fury, if we are going into space, to visit Miranoi again, find Andros and Crone somewhere, and maybe Doggy Kruger, and get them in a room together and talk about and talk about some things that happened when because when Kruger was on Sirius and Astronomer, if they want to make that kind of like Astronomer gave Grum the shield code to invade Sirius.
That's that would be a fascinating one. But if they go full comic, like Andros kind of is like a Deadpool character right now. Like he's to not spoil it, like he's not fully a hero, but also not fully a villain.
Okay, which kind of that would be kind of fascinating to explore as
Yeah,
well.
he's kind of the reason the Death Ranger exists now.
All right. But I'd like it to be a plot twist. In Cosmic Fury or Dino Fury or whatever they want to do is because again to give people a slight spoiler, like the sort of bad guy in Dino Fury and his wife had something happen to them that was done by humans. I'd like the plot twist to be like it wasn't the humans from Earth, but rather of KO-35.
Hmm. Yeah, we could go down that route, and
Hmm.
that would be really that would be a nice way to bring KO-35 back into the lore. Be a nice way to kind of dive back into that, get that nostalgia market money, and at the same time, we could very much see like maybe the future of that planet because we haven't been there in a good bit. But if they were the ones that kind of fucked over Void Knight Queen, that would be it would be interesting to see like what led them down that path. Because
Yeah.
overall that planet did seem to be one to survive, but at the same time not be overly dark. So yeah, we could definitely pull that off possibly. I'm curious. Like, what are your guys' favorite series out of all of this, and what are your least favorites?
Well, I might as well say my favorites. Well, my top five favorites. I mean, I obviously tagged you guys
In the
in
moments, yeah, I saw that.
Twitter about it. So it was like Time Force, RPM, Dino Fury for obvious reasons now, Jungle Fury, and SPD. And I feel like SPD, I love a lot because of the fact that it was one of the more unique Power Rangers seasons, set in the future, focusing on the Power Rangers police force and them all having superpowers themselves, but also having like a villain who actually succeeded. That that was pretty much fascinating because it added a lot of tension to, like, oh, is he going to get away this week, or are the Rangers going to follow him, which is kind of what they've done with Void Knight in Dino Fury, and the fact that he got some victories over the Rangers. In fact, he actually did succeed in what he set out to do in the end. um, and yeah, that's why I love SPD, and the fact that it wasn't all focused on the Red Ranger. Like, the Red Ranger wasn't like, oh, obviously the main character. Like, the Blue Ranger shared that spot, and I'd arguably Kruger was more of the main character than any of the Rangers, because he was the arch enemy to Grum, and he was the one who ultimately defeated Grum in the end.
Mhm. I was a big fan of SPD as a kid. That was one of them that I dove back into when started rewatching here recently. RPM is a big one. I will say I'm kind of cheating because I will say, like, the Boom comics are like arguably my favorite piece of literature, and my arguably my favorite piece of Power Rangers lore at this point. I still have a nostalgia spot for Mighty Morphin, even though I know it's like the cheesiest, most horribly written part of Power Rangers history at this point. But I will say, out of all of them, right now I'm saying that Dino Fury is really eking into that top one, and I still love Mystic Force because fucking capes on Rangers, bring them back.
Oh, the Nick show, and by that I mean like
You
everything
mean
focused on Nick.
Nick Nick the Red
Yes.
Ranger?
I
It's crazy how in all of the Nickelodeon seasons they didn't have like a character who was called Nick or Nicola.
Nikola Tesla, the Green Ranger here.
The Tesla Zord is so powerful, but only during the daytime.
Use the supercharger outside the HEB where we're filming this in Texas because we want to get as many tax breaks as possible. Oh, wrong message.
Yeah. But it's funny you say that, Fex, about Mystic Force, because there's a guy who I did a video with for Animals for Everyone, the top 10 darkest moments, and he did the ranking of all the theme songs. Guess where Mystic Force placed, according to him?
The top.
The very, very bottom.
Oh God. None
I
of
don't
these.
blame I don't blame him because like next to like Operation Overdrive, which also has a really bad like opening.
It's ironic because that's not even the second worst in his opinion. You want to know what the second worst after Mystic Force is?
What is
RPM.
What the fuck?
Just the theme song itself.
Yeah, I mean, none of the theme songs from that era were really great, but that's one of the better ones, honestly.
yeah.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, it's not great, but I don't think it's that bad.
I'm probably gonna have to show you the video later.
Yeah, just drop it in the mod chat. I'll take a look at it while I'm
All
doing
right.
other things. How about you, Zangetsu? Favorites?
Okay, one of my favorites is not really my favorite, but it's one of them. Time Force, because it just makes you like really think. Like it's like if you really think about it, like the Time Force team in itself is technically not even a good guy. Um, and by that I mean the future is weird.
Yeah.
Because
Also,
just being a mutant in itself is a crime. So just you being born can be a crime.
yes. Also, speaking of Time Force, I always had the theory, which, from what I've seen from the comics, it seems like it became true, is that Jen, after the Wild Force team up, stayed behind in the past with Wes. So basically, they're like descended from themselves.
That's some Adam and Eve shit.
I know, right?
So, just just to play on that, if they're descended from themselves, would their future hookup technically be incest?
I
It's a loop. So essentially, Philip J. Fry. So yes.
yeah. Now you've made this awkward, Vex, because it's like the whole. Wait, if Mufasa was scored the only male lines in the Pride, then Nala's dad is probably. Oh no.
Yep.
It's just the Pride could just be like their territory, and could be like some other lines like way past that area.
Oh, very much so in that case. But I like that blew my mind. I had to try and piece that together. But yeah, oh god.
Because even though it is weird, it makes perfect sense at the end of Wild. Like Jen was obviously in love with Wes, so she'd probably be like, "No, screw it, I'm staying with him."
Yeah. Okay. I think so. I guess you still add more to say though.
Yeah.
So one of my top favorites has to be, no drum roll needed. But I really, really enjoy. Let me see. Not SP. I do like SPD. It's really hard because a lot of like the surprisingly enough, a lot of the Disney era like Power Rangers is really good. Excluding Operation Overdrive, it's okay. Its song is terrible. So I'm gonna have to go with a Mighty Morphin era on this one. I really enjoy Zeo.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that one makes a lot of sense actually. Because Zeo being one of your first, it also is one of those that expands on previous seasons, but also tries to do its own thing. Then you have Turbo just existing over there.
It like the earlier parts of Zeo is like I know extraordinarily cheesy, such as the Rangers being like forced to sing like they're in a musical.
Let's stop this crime! It's Morphin time!
But I really enjoy that. It's like the equal like parts cheesy and serious at the same time because the Machine Empire is like wasn't like a legit threat before the Rangers like thankfully got their powers and whatnot because they took out like other galaxies and stuff like it was nothing.
Yeah.
I
And
think if they didn't get the Zeo crystals, got another power instead, they would have probably been screwed.
Yeah, like I really I miss that super overly cheesy, side of Power Rangers in its own right, and but with melding that serious moment too, like with the Machine Empire, yeah, like if they wouldn't have got their powers, like Earth would have been wiped out. Well, technically just California, because well, that's all that we were shown there. But like, can you imagine having a moment like the musical and Cosmic Fury when you have a potential like beefed up swole Zed just laying waste to the galaxy?
Enjoy Swole Zed like singing a musical while body slamming Rangers.
Where is my
No, no.
freedom?
Just imagine like his wife was like off in the distance, like controlling magic, and was one, why are you here? And two, why are you body slamming people?
We're good now, right? We're supposed to be good now. Make my husband small.
Do like the little random nod of like the Sentai with Mystic Mother.
Yeah.
But a notable like mention for like my worst. The first half of Power Rangers Turbo.
All of
Oh.
Turbo. Just all of
No,
Turbo.
not all of Turbo.
No. Nope. Turbo has one of the best finales that leads into arguably the best written season.
Aside from the last 2 episodes,
Okay,
Turbo
okay, let me explain. I don't think AJ was like a bad leader. Like I would state that he had a lot of pressure. He was new to this. And
You mean TJ? You said AJ.
Sorry, TJ. He was like a new leader. He was like new to this, and there was like some of the strongest monsters like known to like that part of like the Rangers. To the Zordon era, at least, there was like pretty much the strongest monsters. I know, debatably, but still.
Yeah.
And the reason why I didn't like the first half of Turbo as much as second half is mostly because you could like visibly tell that the actors did not want to be there.
Well, there's a little bit of debate with that because Johnny on Bosch seemed to like. Yeah, I feel like Johnny on Bosch was willing to stay on because he said in an interview that he had no idea that he was being replaced.
Yeah, that kind of checks because
More referred to like Jason Frank.
Oh yeah, here's the thing. If Jason David Frank and Catherine Sutherland, Katz, if they wanted to leave, that's fine. They could leave. But don't replace like if Johnny on Bosch doesn't want to leave, why replace him?
yeah, like
Don't know. You just had to ask the people whose decision that was. But considering like most of the spotlight was on like Jason Frank, and it just looked like visibly he didn't want to be there like during the show, and the like, how do I say this? It's weird. The series had like one of the best finales, and it has like one of the worst like major villains. I don't think that's a hot take.
No, it isn't a hot take. I mean, when you see them have amnesia to the point that they have to work in a pizza parlor,
wild.
I can't believe I brought up that. Well, to be fair, TJ brought up that episode in Forever Red anyway.
Funny episode. Like that I actually enjoyed was them being attacked and turned into a pizza. That's classic Power Rangers right there.
Evil pizzas are no match for a simple spotlight.
Oh yeah. I gotta say, like my worst season, it's pretty universally hated. It's got to be the whole Megaforce thing.
Oh god. Do we have to talk about Megaforce?
We do.
Okay.
There are redeemable moments in it.
Now, I will say that Robo Knight is the best thing about Megaforce, and Frax.
Robo Knight and the Blue Ranger. I think the Blue Ranger should have been the leader. Like if they were to recast it, he had stage presence. He wanted to fucking be there, and he knew how to act. Like outside of all of that, the rest of the series should have just been recast between seasons, or just get a whole new script team.
Yeah. To be fair, this was mostly, from what I've heard, this is mostly due to Jonathan Saka being an absolute prick with everything and saying, "We just want action, 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 action."
I
Because
don't think it
apparently,
was that good of action, but
because
go ahead.
apparently the writer, according to this is what I've heard from Linkara's History of Power Rangers, because according to an interview with the writer of Megaforce, he wanted to do a lot more stuff with the characters, but Jonathan Saka was like, "No, we're not doing that." To the point that he was just like, "Fine, I'm gonna leave then." So I blame Jonathan Saka for this.
Oh yeah, and it's very much in his fault line here. But the other thing is, like, he took the Michael Bay formula and fucking ruined it somehow. Like,
How do
arguably, Transformers 4 is better than the entirety of fucking Megaforce and Super Megaforce.
that is sad. It's like I don't even know where to begin with that.
But
To me, like, go ahead.
like you should not be able to fuck up explosion, explosion, explosion. But somehow he managed to do it. I don't get it. Like, out of every season, they're like you said, like they want to focus on action. But if you want to focus on action, you still have to have something of a plot there to hold it together. You know.
Yeah,
And there was really no plot other than, like, we're going to give the Rangers almost all of their powers day one, and then it's Monster of the Week.
yeah, it is the bare basics of what people think Power Rangers is supposed to be. Made even worse by the fact it was supposed to be the 20th anniversary, and we had come a long way from just beat up the bad monster of the week,
Exactly.
and as well, like the legendary battle, which could have been spectacularly built up, was basically just like, oh yeah, here you go, here's a script. Oh, I've only got 3 lines in the episode. Yes, you've only got 3 lines in the episode. Don't question it. Why, mate? Don't question it. Just do it.
I just want to talk on it a second. I know we're beating the dead horse at the moment, but let me put on my boxing gloves.
And your nun outfit.
No, it's the Benjamin Franklin outfit. So, but yeah, that's pretty much to sum it up. It just felt like the shell of like a Power Ranger season. Like it had the monsters, had the Rangers, but it didn't have the soul. I know that's a very vague statement, but it kind of fits. It didn't have the soul of a Power Ranger series. It just had the shell of it.
Yes. And going back to what you said, now, if you're gonna do just action, why not just have it be like, oh, here are all the fights, and that's the season. No story, nothing. Just have like a montage of all the best fights of the show and of Super Sentai for some reason. But as well, like to go off on a tangent here, the reason why Mission Yosakura Family manga works so well is because the story and the characters complement the action. And that's what Power Rangers should always do as well. Like, the story and characters should complement the action, like what they've done with Dino Fury. That's what makes Dino Fury so good, because the action is integral to what's going on.
Right, and they squandered such. I don't know how they squandered. They squandered such a terrific golden goose with the legendary key gimmick. Like, I'm not even gonna bring the Super Sentai counterpart in this because it doesn't need to. We're not talking about it, so I won't. But they, like, sure, if they couldn't bring in like other like past strangers, they could have like used like the they used the footage from the Sentai, so they could have used like new actors to tell a story about, okay, what are these keys about? Oh, this is from some alien team, or this is like a past team from Earth that we didn't even know about. Like,
Yes.
so many story potentials they could have used with those keys.
Like
And-
that's the biggest disappointment. Like you're right. Like we have seen actual use of the footage before. Like where they have, like even in Dino Fury, we saw like the stock footage from like Mighty Morphin being used to talk about the cycles. When the Ion was giving up his bike to be used. You know, there's so much potential there. We've seen like even like back in Dino Thunder, I think it was, we saw like little bits and pieces of stock footage being used.
Yeah.
We could have went back and like explained like the Aquatar keys or the fucking Zeo keys, stuff like that. Just that way, if they didn't want to pay the actor to actually show back up, it's mind-boggling to me. Like that was such a great gimmick that they just wasted by like here's Pandora's fucking box, quite literally. Go have fun.
Oh, really? What does it do? There's a simple explanation for everything.
Could have had an episode in which like they like were testing out the keys in a bit, and then oh no, some villain got into the base, stole the Ranger keys, and the Ranger keys were lost, and they could have had like part of the story was like regathering the Ranger keys.
And the worst part about it is not the Ranger never lets go of his weapon line, which Troy would have a fit in most seasons about. I think the worst aspect of Megaforce is something that you don't really think about until you actually think about it. The morphing grid is never mentioned. The source of the Rangers' power is never mentioned in the 20th anniversary of Power Rangers.
Despite the fact that they're flipping through powers like a page in like a magazine.
Yeah.
They never discuss the grid.
Yeah. Which, thank you. Much as we would like to complain about Hasbro sometimes, at least they've mentioned the grid.
Yup.
I have many issues with Hasbro. Most of them have nothing to do with Power Rangers.
Quality control of their merchandise, maybe.
Okay, that's one of them. I said few.
How many times have we had to ship our fucking heads of our Lightning Collection figurines back to get new ones?
Don't remind me. That was a pain in the head.
I think I might as well just say what one of my least favorites are. Aside from the obvious ones like Overdrive and Megaforce, I would say I don't know if this is controversial, but I'd say Ninja Storm is probably one of my least favorites.
Get out.
No, there's a lot of people who don't really like Ninja Storm that much because of its because of its Surfer Bro esque.
It has nothing to do with the Surfer Bro aspect. It has nothing to do with that. It's to do with I feel like one of the biggest aspects that they failed on, the villains.
Oh yeah.
Low4 people often say like Divatox is the worst villain. I'd argue Low4 is worse.
Yeah.
Because at least with Divatox, at least she has an aspect going for her. It fails, but at least she has an aspect going for her. Low4 is like a banished ninja who turned into comedic Lord Zed, and for some reason wants to conquer Earth, but is annoyed that he doesn't get invited to an environmental peace conference for some reason. Really? Why does he want to rule the Earth?
A spite. I think that's more of it, like because of his brother. And it's like my brother is so perfect in every way. Let me just like do this out of spite.
To quote Dot 2, you don't want to take over the universe, do you? You won't know what to do with it beyond shout at it.
Pretty much, like I kind of like, I kind of like him with his little luchador mask.
Oh, that was annoying. But yeah, it's just Low4. I just don't like him in that season, and and it just trying to get my words, trying to figure out how to say this. And it has nothing to do with the Ancient Ninja electric guitar. That's Power Rangers and everything. But yeah, I would have to say the extreme sport aspect, it just didn't work for me. Even though I just said it had nothing to do with that, I feel like, but in all honesty, I do feel like that was like something that was just a big turn off for me, because really, I'm not a sporty person. I mean, I do like some sports, but not like you won't. And I mean, I do like surfing, but you wouldn't see me doing dirt bike racing or skateboarding at any point.
Like, skateboarding was kind of cool for me because I used to skate back in the day, but like overall, like sports just really didn't fit with that one. So yeah, I kind of see that. There's so much that they squander with some of these series that the downside to counting down our least favorites is we'll be here a lot longer counting down our least favorites because
Yeah. But no, I just want to quickly say the other thing as well that I hated most about it is that they tried to make it a soft reboot of the franchise.
That's the worst part about it.
That I will admit that is like the worst part about it. Like coming off of 10 years of a franchise, and just acting like the Power Rangers never existed before. And again, I have to point out, Power Rangers, you cannot do that when you had a season with an alien invasion.
Like, and that entire era of Power Rangers was kind of just like really mid when you break it down. It's unfortunate because like the Disney era almost killed it, and then the Neon Saban era nearly shot itself in the dick, and then somehow rebounded so much. Now we're going into whatever the fuck we're going to call this new era.
It's called the Hasbro era. People are calling it the Hasbro era because it is under Hasbro. But I'd argue that Disney didn't kill it, because some of the best seasons are Disney seasons, like Jungle Fury, RPM, Dino Fury, and SPD.
Yeah, but the problem was they weren't interested in the franchise at all, because they would even put their weird limitation on like the toys was also a bit annoying during that point.
Oh yeah, I'll agree on that front. But the actual qualities of the series themselves, regardless of what Disney did,
but
yeah,
like promotion, toys, and then the weird like, even though there was a weird bit where like they didn't want to put any effort into promoting these series, but they had them fucking walking around Disney World.
Yeah, I'd say Neo Saban is the worst era, just because of the fact that not only do you have arguably the worst anniversary season ever, in not just in Power Rangers but in general, but also it just seemed like Saban just brought it back just to not know what to do with the franchise, and then Nickelodeon. Oh my god. I need to. If I could ask the heads at Nickelodeon one question, it will be this: why do you have the policy of every season must be around 20 or so per season rule?
It's how they order seasons, because they do that for everything from like fucking SpongeBob on down to Power Rangers. It's like anywhere from like 20 to 22 per season.
It just doesn't make sense. To me, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why do that? Like, are you trying to? I don't know what they're trying to do with that.
It's just a way to control this. It just really is. I've never understood it, but
yeah, I feel
something for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like it just like I said, the Nickelodeon Neo Saban era is the worst as well, because of the I just don't like them as a company, particularly for what they did to Legend of Korra. Like, they were like, we can either do a clip show so that our animators get paid, or just flat out cancel this whole thing.
I'll never really let that go, but at the same time, it's probably for the better now that we're getting the comics to explore those plot lines. And,
Yeah.
we're getting the reboot from, or not reboot, but like the sequel series from the actual creators, since Netflix wanted to fucking screw that up with how they wanted to handle it, and the creators just said, "Nah, fuck you, we're going over here and doing our own thing."
But yeah, so yeah, Ninja Storm I'd say is probably my least favorite, just because of the fact that it just didn't do anything for me. I mean, Megaforce is just insulting, but
Yeah.
at least it had some things that I did particularly like. Like I said, I like Robo Knight and I like Frax.
Oh, for sure. I think the only other one I really didn't like, and I don't know what it was about it, but it just didn't sit well with me. It was fucking Lightspeed Rescue.
Okay.
Like, everything about it just seemed like super forced, but at the same time, it had a good plot. But like the action, like the storyline, like the actual like human storyline to it was just kind of forced. But at the same time, like the villain wise and like the actual plot of the show itself was good. It was just such a weird middle ground of me for me. I'm like, this is the best you can do. This is really. I know you could have
Yeah.
wrote this a little bit better and this over here a little bit better because you just did a banger of a season. I don't know if there's like a shift in like executives or writers in between seasons, but like,
I think it was more to do with the fact that because In Space and Lost Galaxy were space themed, and to come back to Earth, it was a bit jarring.
that could be too. That could be too. But yeah, like that one, I just didn't really care for. And then there's one particular.
I think I know as well why it might have not clicked. Is because out of all the seasons, it's the one that's pretty much the easiest to jump on in terms of Power Rangers, because it really just does feel like it's its own thing.
Yeah, it is out of all of them. That's the one that really just felt like it was its own story. It didn't connect to anything at all, really. And obviously, the 2017 movie exists, but it did something unique. I know it gets a lot of hate, but the 2017 movie did something that I don't think any other property could have done. It gave you that dark, gritty side of Power Rangers, but at the same time was familiar. Like,
Okay.
it's. I really wish they would have got the sequel that they were planning, because at the end you saw like Tommy's jacket, and then that was like your cutaway, and you also brought back like some of the surviving cast members from the first season. It's like cameos at the end, so it was starting to set something up, but it never got a chance to, and now we're getting potentially another movie from Hasbro. So hopefully it can do just as well or better. But yeah, that's just another little tiny thing there. But I believe that the only thing we need to really talk about still is what we want them to stop doing. And
Yeah.
to me, what I want them to stop doing, and I know they're never going to stop doing it, is milking the original theme song.
I would to go off on that front. The thing that I wanted them to stop milking, and it's kind of hypocritical for me to say this when I say I want Billy back, but not relying so much on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at the era of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
What? You don't want 77 fucking lines of the same goddamn 3 skins of figures?
No, it's just that I again, like I say, I'm being hypocritical here because I enjoyed that we've got Lord Zed back, and I really want Billy back. But at the same time, those aspects I don't mind as much, because they, like I said, Lord Zed has been gone from the franchise for a very, very, very long time. Billy hasn't been back since CO, which is just as long as Lord Zed. But it's more the fact that they just keep using the same things from Mighty Morphin. It's like, okay, Tommy coming back in Dino Thunder, that was a big deal, all right. but he had a pivotal role to play as the mentor figure. Then it's like, okay, he's in the 20th anniversary. It's like, okay, that's a bit too much now. Now he's in the 25th anniversary, and it's like a Tommy worship show featuring the Power Rangers. So it's just like, okay, just stop right now.
Yeah, it's I agree with that one. I very much agree with it. And the thing being is, like, I get why they bring Tommy or Jason back the most, because they're the most recognizable faces. But at the end of the day, you've also had 29 other years worth of characters,
Yeah,
and
like,
you're promoting them on YouTube by putting up the episodes for those seasons. It's not like they're unrecognizable at this point. You're also over here making toy after toy after toy. You have like Dino Thunder toys, you have Jungle Fury toys, you have fucking Zeo Cog toys. Like there's so much more you can do with these, because kids aren't stupid. And
yeah,
at the
they
end of the
aren't.
day, you're marketing to fucking children. Yeah, they're going to
Yeah,
see they're going to see the made for more adult collector figure here, and they're going to be like, "Oh, that character, I like how they look. Let me go and find that one." It's saying it's in space blue. I'm going to go look
yes,
up in space, or it's fucking SPD. Yeah, and they're going to look this up and they're going to find it. Like, it's amazing how far we've advanced as a species technologically, because you can put an iPad in front of a fucking 5-year-old and they've unlocked it. They've put Angry Birds on it and they're playing it within 30
yes,
seconds, or they're watching some stupid fucking thing on YouTube Kids. It's not going to stop them from finding out about these other seasons and being able to fucking recognize this, character that they saw in the store. So why
yeah,
not utilize some of these other characters?
yeah,
That's been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. But
and
hearing that opening riff to Go Go Power Rangers every fucking year, but retooled, is so annoying.
I agree.
I agree
We
with
need to
that.
put that out the pasture and
Yeah.
shoot it with a shotgun.
Um, but what I was going to say was, going back to the Tommy thing, nowhere is this more apparent than when I saw someone react to Dimensions in Danger, and they were just so giddy when Tommy turned up, and they were just like, "Huh? Who are all of these Rangers? Rangers here? I just want Tommy." That is a problem that needs to stop. Like I said, and yeah, I do like Tommy, but he's not one of my favorites. Like Wes, I was more giddy and excited when I saw the Chronomorpher in Ninja Steel. I was like, we're getting Wes, and we got Wes, and that had more impact for me than anything Tommy did in that episode. Just seeing Wes again.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you see, like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of the parents now. Let's go down to that. A lot of the parents now grew up on different eras of Power Rangers. You have those that grew up on the Disney era. You have those that grew up on the fucking Neo Saban era, just starting to start their family and introducing their kids to this franchise. And it's a great way to be like, oh, this character I remember from this series when I was a kid. Let me go back and show you this one, and then that can start a whole. And I know Hasbro, you love the capitalist market. That can start a whole nother fucking batch of little collectors. And obviously those toys are not going to be worth anything because they're going to be beat the hell out of in a sandbox somewhere, whatever. But yeah, like that's the mind-boggling thing. Like, not everybody grew up in the Dick Ride Tommy era, and they're still doing that because they realize
It's the same problem I have with Pokemon, and just how the exposure with Charizard, like Pikachu's obviously the mascot,
right.
so I have no problem with that. But like the overexposure with Charizard, and it got so bad, like when it was revealed, like Pokemon Scarlet and Fire not having the whatchamacallit, the other starters in the game, like PokeWrath, the Pokemon YouTuber, complained that, oh, I'm not getting my boy Charizard, and I wrote him a tweet like, hey, Charizard had his spotlight last time as the ace of the champion, and do you know what he did?
Block you.
He blocked me on Twitter for that.
Yeah. I'm also blocked for something similar. But no,
I guess I'll get to mine now. So the one I want is like the limit of the word mega. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm kind of like been overloaded by the word mega and Power Rangers a lot. I just want it limited to Megazords. We could let the word rest. I'm tired of hearing either mega win or a mega pun.
what? That's a super mega win.
That's super mega bullcrap, but I get what you mean. Like, yeah, just having Mega Fury Saber in every episode of Dino Fury, that has got that. I will admit that has gone a bit too much.
Yeah, that one. And can we stop after this season with Fury or Dino?
Fair, yeah. You want to know what the working title for Dino Fury was originally going to be called?
What?
Which would have made a lot of sense. Dino Knights.
Yeah, that one makes sense. Like a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, and what boggles my mind is that as much as I love Dino Fury, this was a missed opportunity. This has been a missed opportunity. Ivan from ironically another Dino series, Dino Charge, who is literally a Dino Knight himself, although he's from an alternate dimension. But seriously, he could have made a guest appearance.
Yeah. Like there's.
But yeah. Oh, you.
Like, it would have been so much better. Like from every aspect of the show too.
Yeah. I think that's another thing that I'd want to see them do and not avoid is the blatant obvious. Like, if you've got something gift wrap for you, use it.
Yeah. Shit.
Like you have the resources. Like just ask does any other ranger like want to show back up in the series, and you make a list of it and you ask them about their schedule.
Yeah.
And when the time comes when you're ready, just ask them again, are they still ready? And then they'll be ready to film. Like boom.
Yep.
It's like
in for 2 days. Hi to the new cast. Fuck off. Like that.
yeah.
Or better yet, if they want to bring them back as like one of the new Rangers, like if they want to do, if they're doing Cosmic Fury and they want to do like what's it called, the Sentai with the 12 Rangers,
That would be Q Ranger.
Q Ranger, yeah, because apparently according to Simon Bennett, the showrunner, one of the problems that he didn't of adapting Q Ranger is because there were 12 main Rangers that they had to work from the ground up. So if they want to do Q Ranger now, it's like they've got the six main ones with the Dino Fury team, which could take up 6 of the slots, but also use past Rangers to fill up the other 6 slots.
And that way you don't have to like use as much time to establish them because they already have established stories in the series. That, and you don't have to use like all 12 suits because most of the time the team is split, so you can just see like 5 to 6 Rangers like doing stuff like most of the episodes because
and that would make sense for a series exploring the cosmos.
Mm-hmm. One over in one galaxy, one in another. Very, very simple. On paper.
that could use the bad guy suit for like a Lord Zed power up because he has an exposed brain, and guess who else has an exposed brain?
Lords, I swear to God, if they do not do this series, that will be like, as much as I love them in this era, they have to do that now. They have to do it now. Now that you've mentioned that, that is just like perfect gift wrap 30th anniversary ultimate season right there.
And it's like I know everybody. I know you want like new original suits, but also they rent it. Like they have a rent. Like they have this license that they rented from Toei. I think it would make sense for to use some of the suits from this property because they're already paying for it.
Has it been confirmed that Toei has broken up the contract with Hasbro?
No, because like that would be ridiculous. Like they would not be able to use like almost any of the suits or the monster like costumes because they're technically owned by Toei. That'd be like 99% of the costumes.
Like they've disproven that so much. Like Simon Bennett even weighed in on it.
like money wise, that would make no sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Has he?
Yeah,
Did he actually?
He quote retweeted one of them like it's just a falsehood. It's online.
Oh, thank God for that.
Here's the thing, Luke. I've been so involved with, but I hadn't been involved with the actors and whatnot. But I've been keeping like note on like what people say occasionally online. Like every other season, I would hear this like, oh, they're like losing the license from Toei and all this other stuff. Like it would make literally no sense for them to break up that license because it's just they have like access to so many suits and they're already they would just be throwing money down the drain. They couldn't use the Mighty Morphin suits or like have the toys or anything because they couldn't sell the Mighty Morphin toys anymore because guess what? That's a Jew Ranger suit.
Yeah,
it's owned by Toei.
Yeah, it's been a rumor since like the Disney era. I think it's ridiculous. Unfortunately, like that particular channel that keeps posting that shit has had some sort of a contact inside of the production company, and they were very, very low on the totem pole. So anything that they fed them was like a half truth or like a partially confirmed bit, like on Dino Fury's name, for example, and shit like that, going down the road, like working titles and stuff like that. They've had like partial truths fed to them, and then once that person was let go because they were leaking data, they just started like, well, we're already popular enough, so we're just going to continue to spread bullshit. And that's
okay.
Unfortunately,
yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I like a lot of the original suits the series have done.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like Lord said, the Titanium Ranger.
They have great ideas, but could you picture Hasbro, for example, creating an entire team from scratch and creating lore for it and making it make sense instead of adapting it and putting their own spin on it? I just can't picture that personally.
And so well at like editing like the footage, and because the footage from like the Sentai is like now in like HD quality, it makes it even easier for them to splice the footage. Like other than the Zord fights, like half the time I couldn't tell like was this like original footage or was this footage from the show from the other series. Like they've done a really good job with that. And their and their on set battles have definitely improved.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like they have started to learn very quickly like how to make stuff believable and splicing footage and doing so much with it that it would be that unfortunate like stupid decision to like finally say like, well, we don't need you anymore, we're good over here, and then crash and burn the entire franchise. There may end up being a day where that happens, but the world will never know until it actually is confirmed as a fact. And I don't think the showrunner's going to be coming out here and be like, yeah, no, this is bullshit. And then two years later, like, we're good. Bye, Toei. And then scrapping 20 plus years worth of property just for one greedy decision. At the end of the day, they want to market to that nostalgia market and also to the new market for the new franchise. So that would be the dumbest decision. Imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't get that from Simon Bennett from what I've seen and heard from him. He seems like the guy that gets Power Rangers.
Very much so. So I think that's a good podcast, though. What do you
Hmm.
guys think?
Yeah. I I had a thought in my head, but I forgot. I forgot it. Oh no, that was it. That was it. It was my final thoughts will be like I can understand why people are annoyed with the whole Dino and Fun and Fury in the titles, but with this time with Cosmic Fury, I don't really mind it because it is pretty much a direct sequel to
Yeah.
Dino Fury, so it makes sense.
See, I don't mind the reusing of a title when it's a direct series, but like we've had three Dino series at this point. We've had two Ninjas. We need to branch out in the. We have literally almost 40 years worth of Sentai out there, and we can adapt any of them at any time.
Yeah.
Realize, like, politically, we're not going to adapt something like Pat Ranger versus Lupin Ranger, or we're not going to.
I don't know. I feel like that could work if, in the context of the series itself, it's the A Squad Rangers.
Yeah. If it's a continuation of SPD or something like that, maybe it could work. But like politically, I don't picture that one working. I know they stupidly don't want to do Tukor, the train series, even though fucking
Thomas the I would love it if it was like called Power Rangers Thomas the Tank Engine.
Their mentor is literally Thomas.
No, the mentor's the flight control.
Yeah, mentor's the conductor over here.
Wow, that would actually be very similar to its a possible counterpart because that is the case. The mentor is a conductor.
But like that's it could work like, but I don't think they want a merchandise war with themselves. Is what that one boils.
Yeah,
yeah. I think we talked about that a bit when we were watching Dino Fury, but I get that we won't get stuff like that, or like the very, very old, like Jetman, stuff like that we probably won't ever see here. But like we have so many other themes to surround this franchise with that we need to start taking a little bit more risk and a little bit more of a like little push towards something different, because dinosaurs are getting very, very stale, honestly. Um, this one worked really well because it had a great plot and it had a great, cast of characters. Like every actor wanted to be there. They weren't like forced into it by their agent. Like this will get you into the entertainment industry, kind of California kind of thing. But
Because go ahead.
but like at the end of the day, like once we get past Cosmic Fury, like what will the next step be? What will, because and Power Rangers were always moving forward, so we gotta slowly continue down this path of perfection, basically. So I'm curious, like where we go from here and where the next adventure is going to be. Because if we do another fucking dinosaur one after going to space, I'm going to bash my head against the wall.
Yeah. I feel like the dinosaur one now is more keen to like it's kind of like with the dots in Dot 2, it's like you have to have your mandate you have to have your mandate episode with the Daleks in Doctor Who. In the same way, like you have to have your every era has to have their mandate dinosaur themed season.
Unless they like use the updated costumes from the Korean seasons of darn it, I'm kind of lost there. I kind of forgot my train of thought. What was it again? No, you know what? Just scratch that. It was a dumb idea.
Okay.
But yeah, like I think like moving forward with Power Rangers, we need to do two big things. Let the past die and take more risks. Like those are our two big ones. Because going continuously into a formula that's worked so long will only work for so long, unfortunately. And having those seasons that were just like Monster of the Week really fit into the the market for a good while, and you're just now seeing a resurgence between the comics and this season, and like Beast Morphers for a bit, bringing people back in because it was scary to do something different. But at the end of the day, we really need to do those two things, because bringing back fossils of actors is only going to last so long because they're not going to be able to sit there and do the stunts themselves anymore. You know, because bringing back people from like Mighty Morphin, like Jason David Frank, for example, is hitting 50. You know, it's the unfortunate reality of aging out of a role, and relying on that market is really going to be like a very dangerous thing if they continue to do it and be like, I want to do my own stunts or I want to do this thing, and these types of actors are the ones to never say no. You know, like no, I can't do this stupid thing here, and they're going to end up getting hurt or get worse on set. So yeah, that's just my thoughts moving forward. Any like final thoughts from you two before I hit stop?
Nope. I feel like we covered everything, and looking forward to finding out what's going to happen next in Dino Fury, and hoping some of my theories do come true.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my final thought is, don't allow a giant pig monster eat your weapons, and don't get turned into a pizza.
All right, we'll revisit this topic in the Dino Fury review podcast in like 2 weeks when that comes out, maybe 3 to watch it all because of life. But yeah, with that, peace.
Peace.